Moving on to level number 6, it says import litprocessor.java. So we got to go to our backpack, and we're going to import litprocessor.java and litanalyzer. So go back to our backpack and import litanalyzer. It says in the litprocessor.java, write the method find parts of speech. So I got to flow down and see if I can find parts of speech. And it doesn't look like I do, but they give me the starting part of this. Okay, to find a specified word in the parts of speech.txt file and return its part of speech. So what I'm going to do is copy what they have provided for me. And what I'm seeing is I should be returning a string from this method signature, so public string, find parts of speech, and I am feeding it as a parameter a string, and it says word to find, and then we throw a file not found exception. So number 1, it asks us to create an array list to contain the contents of the parts of speech.txt file using the read file method. Okay, so what we've got to do with that is create a new array list. So I'm going to do array list string, and then I'm going to say this is word parts. We're going to use the read file method and feed it the parts of speech.txt, and we'll explore that in just a second. Parts of speech.txt. And when we look in the parts of speech, it has a word and then it's a part of speech. If it's a verb or an adjective or a noun, we see that we have this list of words. And let's just look how many words we've got. We've got about 3,700 different words in here. And we will, let's see, I want to go take a look at this real quick. Yep, line 407. So keep a note of line 407. I'm going to show you how that's going to mess with us in just a minute. But anyway, I want to go back to my lit processor. Okay, and we're going to write this thing. So number 1, it says create an array list, which I did. To contain the contents of parts of speech. So we have in this word parts array list, it's called parts of speech. And so it says for each element in the array list, okay, so that tells me that we got to do a for each loop. So I'm going to do for, and I'm going to do string s. Says for each element in the array list, which is word parts, open this up, we're going to find the index of the colon in the current element. So find the index of the colon in the current element. So I'm going to say int index of colon. Spell it out there. And then what I want to do is s dot index of, and then throw that colon in, because s is that temporary string variable that is holding on to each different element in the array word parts. Okay, so part A is done, and that says obtain the word from the current element using the substring method and the index of the colon. Okay, so string, I'm going to say current word is going to be equal to s dot substring 0, comma, index of colon. So again, what we learned from index of and from our substring method is that with the parts of speech, okay, I'm going to start at index 0 and cut off the colon and everything else that comes after it. So here's the parts of speech. So if the word was, for example, abate, I would want to just grab that word abate and cut off the colon and everything else that comes after it. Okay, so that's what this piece is doing right here. Okay, part C says, use the equals method to compare the current word in the list to the word to find. So I am determining if my current word is the word that I'm actually looking for in that parameter. Okay, if they are equal, use the substring method and the index of the colon to obtain the part of speech from the current element. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do right now. I'm trying to return the part of speech that it is. If the word is a noun, a verb, an adjective. So what I'm going to do up above is create a string, and I'm going to call it ret, because what I'm trying to do is return this thing and set it equal to the empty string. Okay, so back in my for loop, I'm going to use an if statement, and if word to find dot equals, again, the dot equals is how we compare objects or reference type variables, which strings are reference type variables. So if the word defined equals my current word, dot current word, or dot equals current word, if that's true, what I want to do is get what part of speech that current word is. And I'm going to set ret equal to, what do I want to do? S dot index, S dot substring. And instead of starting from the colon, I'm going to do index of colon, but I don't want to grab the colon, right? Remember, our substring method is going to grab the first index that we specify, and I don't want to grab that colon. So I want to grab +1, index of colon +1. Okay. And actually, so number 3 says, return the part of speech. So here's what I want to do. I want to return that part of speech. Return ret. Because as soon as I find it, that's the word that I'm looking for. And so I can return it as soon as I enter this if statement. However, let's say let's imagine for a second that I don't find that word. If I don't find that word, I want to notify myself. Okay, so I'm going to get out of the for loop. And if I get out of this for loop, that means I haven't found the word. So ret, I'm going to say is word not found. And then I will return ret at this point. Okay. Okay, so that's good. That is actually part 3, and it says, in my console, let's test our find parts of speech. Okay, let's test it. So my console, I want to test this thing. And it says, create a lit analyzer object. So I'm going to do that right now. And we're going to do lit analyzer. I'm going to name it L is going to be equal to a new lit analyzer. And then it says, here's the files. We want the story.txt and the stopwords.txt. So what I need to do is check out lit analyzer. And it says this is the lit file and the stop file. Okay, so the first thing is the story, and the second thing is the stop file. And what I mean by thing are the parameters. So it's exactly how they're giving me in the directions. So it's got to be my story.txt and my stopwords.txt, which needs to be a string. Okay. I want to look at the story real quick because I don't know what the story is. It says, there was a table set out under a tree in front of the house, and the March Hare and the Hatter were having tea at it. That sounds familiar. Maybe some Alice in Wonderland. Okay. Step number 2 says, call find parts of speech method with a word to find in it. Okay, let's do this. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to do system.out.println. Oh, it says print the part of speech that that is returned from calling the method. Okay, so I'm just going to print it. So I'm going to do L dot find part of speech, and let's look for the word abate. That was the very first word that I saw. And let's run this thing and see if anything comes up. Program is complete. It says that abate is a verb, so that's cool. Let's go to my parts of speech and just confirm. Abate is a part of abate is a verb, so that's cool. All right, let's check out abnormally. Let's see if abnormally comes out with an adjective. So we're going to do some proper testing. You know what? So if I'm going to do some proper testing, let's copy that and parts of speech abnormally, and we'll run this, and it is an adjective. Okay, very cool. But I think I told you to remember to remember line 407, and that's going to give us an issue. So let's take a look at line 407. Okay, 407, bus. I see that it's a noun and a verb. So what I'm going to do is copy this again, paste it, and let's check out bus. And when I run this, see what happens. I'm seeing that I get a verb, an adjective, and a noun. And that's actually not that bad. I thought that something else was gonna happen. Let's test instead of line 407, let's test line 408. I'm going to look at line 408, which is bustle. Okay. So I'm going to test bustle next. And let's clear the console and run this. There it is. Okay. So bus was a noun. It didn't get that second part where bus could be a verb. But when I look for bustle, I get this index. Your code hit this exception, and it's a string index out of bounds. And it says that it's -1, that bustle doesn't exist. But just to double check one more time, line 407, or sorry, 408, bustle definitely is a word in there. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways that we can edit this. I'm going to show you one way. You can think of some others, but I'm going to go back to lit processor. And one of the things that's happening is that we are reading in the file, and let's take a look at read file and how that actually works. Read file reads in while it has next. Okay, so what has next does is has next grabs everything up until a space occurs. Okay, and if you remember, bus has got a space after a comma because we have got bus can be two different parts of speech. So one clever way that I actually got from one of my students, and his name is Max, very talented programmer, is he showed me this. I want to show you that we can use has next line and file.input next line. And so what I did is I copied read file. I'm going to call this read file ln. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that I've got everywhere that I've called has next, I've changed it to has next line. Okay, and instead of read file ln, in my find parts of speech, I'm going to do read file ln. Okay, I'm going to clear the console, and I'm going to run this. So we just created this new file, and what I've got is a verb, an adjective, and now bus is telling me that it's a noun and a verb, and bustle is a verb. So Shout out to Max. Thank you so much for showing me that. I thought that that was a very clever fix for that issue. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and click Finish. On to lesson number 7. It says in litanalyzer.java, here's my lit analyzer, write the method analyze parts of speech to identify the parts of speech for each word in story. Okay, so I'm in lit analyzer. I'm going to flow down to here. Okay, it says in lit analyzer, write the method analyze parts of speech to identify the parts of speech for each word in story. Okay, so this is not just for a word like I did before, but this is for an entire story. We are returning an array list containing the identified parts of speech. Okay, so I'm going to grab this. And just before my toString, I like my toString to be the last method in my class. Why that is, I don't know. I've just always done it. So all the new methods that I write are just above my toString. But anyway, I'm going to take a look at step number 1. Declare and initialize a new array list that will contain the parts of speech. So, okay. Array list. These are going to be containing strings. These contain the parts of speech. So let's just say lit parts is going to be equal to a new array list string and open and close parentheses. Okay. Then it says to prevent modification of the original text, declare and initialize a string variable to be an alias of lit text. So I'm going to go string lit text alias is going to be equal to lit text. And again, lit text is an instance variable that we have that's being initialized to that lit file name. Okay. And it says, while the string contains spaces. So this is kind of hinting at a while loop. So while, I'm going to say lit text alias dot index of space is not equal to -1. Okay. So what this is doing is index of space. If it gave me a -1, that would mean that I don't have any spaces. So I want to go while lit text alias dot index of space. So while it's not -1, I want to continue running this while loop. Okay, so part A in this while loop, it says, attain the index location of the first space in the string. So I'm going to do int index of space is going to be equal to, and then I'm going to say lit text alias dot index of space. Okay, so obtain the index location of the first space in the string. Okay, and that's how index of also works. I'm not sure if I mentioned that before, but like if there's several spaces, what it will return is the first occurrence of that space, the first index of the occurrence of that space. Okay, then it says use the substring method and the location of the space to obtain the current word in the string. Okay, so let me tell you what we're trying to do right now. So here's the story. What we are going to do is feed in every single word in the story. And this is an array list currently right now. And that array list is, I forgot the name of it. What is the name of it? Lit parts. No, it's not. I'm sorry. it is lit text, and it's not an array list, it's just a giant string called lit text. Sorry about that. So this string is one giant string, okay? And what we're trying to do is pick apart each individual word and determine what part of speech it is, given this parts of speech .txt. So I want the part of speech of there and was and table. Okay, so that's my goal right now. And I'm trying to fill that into an array list called lit parts. Okay, so now that I got it right in my head, I'm going to do use the substring method and the location of the space to obtain the current word in the string. Okay, so I'm going to do string, and I'm going to call it lit part. Instead of lit parts, it's going to be lit part. Okay, it's going to be equal to. So use the substring method and the location of the space. So I'm going to do lit parts. No, I'm not. I'm going to do lit text alias dot substring and then 0, comma, index of space. Okay. So using the substring method, which is here, and the location of the space to obtain the current word in the string. Okay. And I'm going to change that from lit part to current word. Great. Okay. Part C, it says use the find parts of speech method with the current word to obtain the part of speech and add it to the array list. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to do string. This is going to be lit part. Is going to be equal to, I need to call the find part of speech method, which is what we did in the last level, on current word. So we're feeding it a current word. And once I have that lit part, okay, it says add it to the array list. All right, so I'm going to do lit parts dot add lit part, which is that string. Okay. And then part D says use the substring method to obtain the remaining text of the string starting at the character after the location of the space. Okay, so what it had me do in the beginning was create an alias of lit text so that I can shorten this lit text alias every single time I find a word. Okay, because I'm going to find a word and then I'm going to shrink it from the beginning. So what's going to happen with my story is as soon as I find the part of speech that the word there is, I'm going to shrink it to, instead of there was a table, I'm going to shrink it to was a table. And then as soon as I find was, I'm going to find a table. And so on and so forth. Okay, so now that I got it right in my head, let's go back to this. And I'm going to do lit text alias equals lit text alias dot substring, and it's going to start from the index of space, but again I don't want to grab that space, I want to grab that one after that space, the index after that space, so +1. All right, very good. Step 4 says return the array list, so I'm going to return my array list is what I added to, and it's called lit parts. Okay, and then it has me test it. Okay, in my console.java, test your array list. Okay, I'm going to comment these out for a second. Oops. And it says declare and initialize an array list to the list returned from calling the method in your lit analyzer object. Okay, so I'm going to say array list. I shouldn't have commented. Let's see. You know what? I'm going to leave those uncommented. But what I am going to do is do a new line. So I'm going to do array list string and then call it story parts. Is going to be equal to L dot analyze parts of speech. Okay, I wanted my object from before to still be available because I'm going to call my analyze parts of speech on that object that's a lit analyzer. Okay, so let's do a system.out.println and let's do story parts. I wanted to name it parts, so I'm going to call it story parts. Okay, let's run this. And I see I've got a couple of different errors. So in lit analyzer, on line 32, I'm going to find that it says cannot find symbol array list. And I'm saying that I'm not importing an array list. So I need to, up at the very beginning, do import java.util. And here's kind of a catch-all. If I do util.star, it's going to import a lot of stuff. And one of those things is an array list, but it's kind of a quick little thing to do. And here we go. I've got a bunch of word not founds, but mixed in there, I've got some nouns and some verbs. And so here's what I want to double check. I want to look for the word there in parts of speech, just to double check real quick. So let's go to the T's. I'm going to wheel all the way down QRST, and I'm in the THs. And so I'm looking for the word there. I see theorize. Oh, theories, theorize, theory, and then things. I don't see the word there. So I'm not too concerned at this point. We've got a lot of words that are currently not found, but I see sprinkled in there. I've got nouns and verbs. And so this works part of the time, but we've only got 3,700 words to work with. And so I'm going to say that this is a good start to our methods that we just wrote. So another thing that we can do is add a new text file or change the contents of story to be a story, poem, song, or other form of literature of your choice. This is going to get you set up for our project in this unit. So I definitely recommend doing that part. But that's some helpful tips for Unit 6, Lesson 7 using string methods.